Instagram and stuff like that. That all the guys are going, huh?
I did not particularly address that as like a communication preference, just because we're trying to really get into the nuts and bolts of measuring and looking at the data inside analytics. But I'm sure that there are people in this room that could talk to you about that too. All right, so bounce rates over 70% just feel nasty, right? If you saw a bounce rate of 70%, you might go, oh my gosh, I'm not doing a very good job. But it's okay, they're a little bit normal in some cases. And I guess the thing there, it's really just a statement, it's not really a question, right? But when you're looking at that, does anybody have a bounce rate lower than 70%?
We're
lower?
42.
42, okay, good. I'll show you some of the center stuff. It's usually a little bit lower. On certain pages, we'll see it higher. Other things, we won't see it quite that high.
I think the average is somewhere around 50 something across.
It's going up though. There's an upswing that we're seeing overall, and these are true statistics within inside each of the different fields.
Whose website?
Whose
website?
This is from a few folks that kind of like a collection of websites that are maintained by a consultants group.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So not something I have direct impact on, which is good. Thankfully, I can't take credit for those. But your action step in this purpose is really to make sure that if you're seeing bounce rates that are maybe in that over 50% range, that you might want to tweak your copy or your text that are on those pages and see if that makes a difference. Maybe it's just a matter of some language that's there that they don't quite understand, or that's not compelling, or drawing them in. It could just be your design overall is terrible, or it might need to be tweaked, right? It's not terrible. Nothing's ever terrible in nonprofit.
Is there any significance to the timeline stuff below the number?
What's that?
Is there any significance to the timeline stuff below the number, or was that just dragged into the artwork?
No, it's actually the timeline.
Oh, so it is?
Yeah.
So in one case of senior services, there's a real different pattern there.
Yeah, exactly.
What, they weren't awake at
midnight. And that's true. You'll see in the live metrics I'll show you from the center site, you'll see that a day can make a huge difference. Anybody use Google Analytics on a regular basis? And they check it daily or so? Okay. So you know very well that you log in there 1 month compared to the very next month can look like, what gorilla is this? It's not the same one.
Ours is because we got a flex drive.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, done.
It's actually way up.
The other thing that people will see is if you have a jobs board or a career section to your site, that's always going to rank higher. So usually that tends to be in your top pages, just because people are constantly looking for positions, specifically in nonprofit work too. Or if you have something that says internship, then it could be random people finding that just from Google searches. So you want to make sure though that those job visitors that are looking at your site, what do you want to do? Capture their information, right? They might be a little bit interested in nonprofits. Maybe that's why they're there. So have some type of call to action for them to engage and go a little bit further. They might just be interested in your next blog post. All right. More and more people are visiting your website using a mobile device. Anybody see an uptick in their mobile device usage? Okay, I see several hands. Anybody, Nancy, do you know what your statistics are?
Well, we have our main site, and then we have our journal magazine site. And the main site is about 25% mobile and 75% desktop, but our other is getting 50-50.
Okay. So it's about half and half. We looked at this a few years ago as we were trying to think about whether or not we needed a responsive design, whether we needed to take that path, etc. And at the time, we only had 3% traffic through mobile usage, or even tablets. We were like, okay, not on the top priority list. I'll just say that that's changed drastically for us. So it's much higher ranked for us now than it was. Liz, do you have any impact here, like what yours looks like?
I don't know off the top of my head, but I know it's grown, definitely, and especially with people watching video.
On mobile devices.
Yeah, I watch PBS on
So the key takeaway here, like your next action step, is just really to make sure that if it's not a mobile-friendly site, that you're working towards that. I'm not saying that you have to go fully responsive. That's not necessarily your next step. But think about the design implementation that you have currently and see what tweaks that you can make to obviously make it just a little bit better user experience for those that are coming from a mobile device. And start working on your board and your boss so that they understand the true statistics behind this, that, you know, we talk about Mobilegeddon and that kind of thing, and it's really happening. So no better time than now to start planting those seeds so people really understand it.
I was just going to say, one of the easiest things you can do to help with making your site easier for mobile users is, you know how you'll hyperlink text, you know, click here. Make that a button instead of text. It'll be easier for somebody to hit on a mobile screen if it's a button instead of just text embedded within more text.
And if you can't do a button because it doesn't make sense based on the layout of the design, make your hyperlinks larger font text so they're easier to click as well. That way you don't have to zoom in or pinch, you know, pinch open and click. That makes a huge difference for people that are online. The other important thing to mention, since we're talking about Google anyway with this, is that Google has changed their algorithms again, and those sites that are mobile friendly are actually returning higher in search results now than in previous years. So it's taken into account in those SEO searches, search engine optimization. So you want to make sure that you're thinking about that ahead of time as well. So you can actually do a test to see where you rank as mobile friendly or unfriendly, I suppose, with inside the Google site. So just search for that, and there's a little test you can take. You just enter your website and it'll do it for you. So obviously, they're also very impatient. How many of you are impatient, sitting there trying to figure out what's going on? So those people that are coming from mobile devices are more likely to leave your site immediately if they're like, it's this teeny tiny, or those buttons aren't there. If they can't do what they want to do, they're not going to stick around. So they're just kind of fickle visitors, whatever. So mainly what you want to do is make sure you're getting to the point, right? Be succinct in your copy that's on your pages, especially those that are more prone to be visited through mobile usage. And you can look at that in analytics and figure out which pages people are most visiting from a device like that. So keep your writing concise and make your call to action buttons really, really obvious. So your visitors from search are also likely coming from a mobile device. How many of you sit in a car and are like trying to find a restaurant or something, right? So I'm not the only one. So it makes sense that Google's kind of pushing this whole thing with the mobile-friendly sites. But what you want to make sure that you're doing is just pay special attention to the pages that attract your search visitors. And you can look, well, you can kind of slice and dice any data on your site, and we'll play with that here in just a second. But just make sure it's really, really easy. Again, those call to actions are important. But your visitors are probably going to be coming from search as well. So make sure those pages that they're visiting, the landing pages, are going to be designed properly and well. So speaking of search, your terms are also key to what's happening. So make sure that the list of search terms people are using as they come to your site, you can look at the terms that they have entered that get them to your to your site. So make sure you know what those are, and that you're kind of, sometimes it's your organization's name, sometimes it's even your ED, or it might be a particular program or event that you run. Those search terms will pop up, and so they're taking you there. See what it is that's drawing them in, and then make sure you're designing around those things. Make it easy for those people that are going to be using your services to find you, obviously. So in your tagging, your meta tags and stuff that you use on the site, make sure that you're pulling those key terms out. And then the other thing that you can do for mobile design also is make sure that your phone numbers are clickable